In this video, I will be going over exactly how you structure the perfect flashcards for any type of subject for students. And this is part 2 of my series. So if you haven't gone and seen part 1, which is how you use the application Anki, go watch that right now. Before I get on to how you create the perfect flashcard, I want to tell you a story. Around 3 years ago, I was in my chair over here and I was scrolling on my phone through Discord. And I was on a Discord server. And this wasn't any Discord server. This was Revishan's Discord server. If you don't know who Revishan is, get off this channel right now. Revishan is my god. If I had to make a list of the top 10 people in the world, Revishan wouldn't be on it. But if I had to, if my brother, if my sibling, and Revishan were on the edge of a cliff, and I had to only save one person, I would save my brother, but Revishan would come close second. That's how much I value him. I would actually think about that decision because Revishan is my goat. Anyways, Revishan's Discord server was this massive revision server back in the day. I don't know what happened to it now, but back in the day there were bare students on this Discord server. And I was just scrolling and suddenly I get this message on one of the chat rooms, and this guy was saying, I'm doing this science chemistry test tomorrow, and I need flashcards for it immediately. Now, being the good Samaritan I am, a very, very generous Samaritan, I DM him and I'm like, yo, I got flashcards on this exact topic. Do you want them? And his response was oh yeah, bro. Of course, I really want these flashcards because I haven't made any flashcards and I really need to revise. So then I send him over my Anki flashcards that I've made on the topic. And then an hour goes by. And then I get a DM on my phone. And I go and check my phone. I go open up Revishan's Discord server. I click on the DM, and this guy's messaging me back, but he's not thanking me. I thought he was gonna be a thank you or please can I send you money somehow? But no, this guy sent them back. He sent the flashcards back. I gave him my flashcards for free, and he sent them back because he was like, "Oh mate, these flashcards are really trash. And I don't know if you made them or not, but I can't use these flashcards." So this guy preferred to not use any resource than use my flashcards. Of course, I was really embarrassed by the thing, and I was oh no mate, I found these flashcards online. These are mine. Yeah, they are trash, mate. But deep inside, I was really embarrassed because I sent this guy flashcards, and this guy sent them back, and not literally sent them back. He came back and he was yeah, these are trash. I can't use these. And that got me thinking, how do I make the perfect flashcard? I wish I had this video around 2 to 3 years ago. I wish someone had just sat me down and told me, how do you structure flashcards so they are the most optimal for your revision? By the way, the story continues, and it ends with me getting really good grades at my GCSEs. But I had spent so much wasted time on these random flashcards that weren't optimal, that weren't structured in any way. I would have science flashcards with literal paragraphs which I used to memorize, and it wouldn't really serve me in the exam. And I just wasted so much time for good grades. I got good grades. I'm not complaining, but come on, man. I spent so much time. I may put up a screenshot of my Anki, the amount of cards I was doing every single day leading up to my GCSEs, because I think I was doing 6 hours worth of flashcards, when if I just had structured that optimally, like the advice I'm going to give you in this video, I would have narrowed that down to 1.5 hours. So the TLDR of this entire story is that make good flashcards given the advice in this video, or you risk wasting so much time to get the same grade that you could have got if you just had spent maybe a quarter of the time that you would have originally spent to get the same grade. So this then brings me on to the point. How do you make the perfect flashcard? Step number 1, clarify our goals. Before we start getting into exactly how you make the flashcard, we need to clarify what flashcards are actually used for, because there's a lot of misinterpretations. When I was doing my GCSEs, the exams you do in year 10, around 15, 16 years old when you're in the UK, I thought the flashcards were going to be used for understanding, memorizing, and some sort of exam technique. But I was wrong. You shouldn't use flashcards for these 3 things. By the way, when you revise for your exams, there are mainly three things that you need to focus on. There's basically understanding the topic, like the concept or whatever. There's memorizing the concept, like memorizing the key definitions, memorizing the process, and then there's exam technique. So exam technique is basically doing like the practice questions. If you want to know like the split, the exam technique session should be around 80%. 80% of your time should be dedicated just to exam technique, doing like the practice questions and stuff. And then 10% of your time should be used for memorization. Maybe 15%. And then the other, what is that? The other like 5% should be used for understanding the content. But I didn't know that. But now I know that when you use flashcards, we should only use them for memorizing. You should already understand the concept. You should already understand how the process works. And you shouldn't be using them for exam technique. You shouldn't be using them as practice questions. You shouldn't have like keywords from the specification. Actually, you should like use some keywords from the specification, but like you shouldn't have like the process, like any exam technique in your flashcards. We should only use this in the second step of the like good grade framework, which is just memorizing the key information. So for example, if you're doing a STEM subject, for example, computer science, any sort of science, maybe even maths, you're only using these for key definitions, or maybe even like memorizing like processes that you really need to memorize. So I remember in like chemistry, we needed to remember the Haber process or whatever. I would bullet point, like if I went back and changed my framework for flashcards, I would go back and just memorize the process of the Haber process and then just memorize the definition. It's only memorization that we're using flashcards for. For humanities subjects like English literature, English language, geography, history, we're going to use flashcards again for just memorizing, but we're going to use them for memorizing definitions, dates, and essay plans. So like for English literature, if I did a book called A Christmas Carol, so if I was going to memorize an essay on Mrs. Burling, I would just have the key concepts or the key points for Mrs. Burling. I wouldn't write out the essay. No. I'm not writing out the entire essay. I'm just having the key definitions, basically the only things we need to remember for the exams in these flashcards. So now you understand that like when we're doing these flashcards, when we're making these Anki flashcards, we're not using them for understanding the concept. If you have a flashcard like giving analogies, is that how you say it? Analogies. If you're, how did I get a grade 9 in English, bro? If you're using your flashcards for analogies to explain a particular concept, for example, if we're going, what's something that, like if we're going over like waves and we need to explain how waves work, or like how radio waves are emitted, then we don't use the flashcard. We use them just to memorize definitions that we need for the exam, or memorize key processes that we need for the exams. I used to watch a YouTuber called Ali Abdal back in the day, and he used to actually use flashcards wrong. I know this is like a bit controversial, but when he used to make flashcards back in the day, this is like years and years ago, he used to like literally copy and paste like texts, like massive amounts of text in his flashcards, and then he used to try and memorize the entire like paragraph. And I tried to copy him, but now I know that like you shouldn't really do that. You should only use it for memorizing particular key information that you need for the exam. Step number 2, how do you make the flashcard? I'm not going to waste your time here. I'm not going to go over like I'm not going to tell you another story, don't worry. I'm literally just going to give you some bullet points that you need to think about when you're making your flashcard. So in this particular section, I would personally take out like your notes or something, take out like a notepad and list down the bullet points that you need to use whilst making a flashcard. For a STEM subject, for computer science, maths, any sort of like sciencey based, definition based subject. Number 1, the answer to the flashcard should be bullet pointed at the back. So you shouldn't use paragraphs in your flashcards. You should just have bullet points at the back of your flashcard. Number 2 is at the front of your flashcard, you should either have a definition or process that you need to revise. So either, for example, I'm doing physics and I'm doing, I think, I'm doing like gravity basically. I would ask I would in the like the front of my flashcard, I would say, give the formula for Kepler's equation, or like, what is the definition of this equation, or how does this process work? And then you should be bullet pointing it at the back. You shouldn't be asking. You shouldn't have flashcards like describe this process. Like, it shouldn't really be vague, basically. But like, not just when people say, "Oh yeah, your flashcards shouldn't be vague." Like it's really, that in itself is kind of vague. So by not like your flashcard shouldn't be vague. What I mean is that it should either be asking you a definition for something, or asking you to describe like a particular process, which is also sort of like a definition because you need to memorize that. Number 3 is each flashcard should contain one idea or one point. You should not have different or like multiple points on the same flashcard. Trust me, I made this mistake before. You don't want to make it again. It was so much wasted time. I needed to redo my entire flashcard deck again. You just want to have one. You want to keep your flashcard as simple, not simple at, like in the traditional way, but like you should keep it as concise as possible. So you should only have one idea per flashcard. Number 4 is image occlusion should be used whilst using Anki. If you haven't already seen my first video in the series, go watch that. I basically teach you why Anki is the best way for like the best application for flashcards and how you use that. And image occlusions, which is a sort of like extension for Anki, is really, really good for science and like STEM based subjects, because it's like you can like have a diagram or like a picture, and you can filter out or like you can cover up certain bits of the picture, and then you can like ask yourself what this means and stuff. So yeah, you can use that as your flashcard. That is 100% something I would personally use. For non-STEM subjects, so any sort of humanities subject, any sort of thing that doesn't involve a lot of maths and a lot of logic, basically. Again, flashcards should either contain definitions or essay plans. So if you're doing like English literature, you should have an essay plan per flashcard, or a definition, or a quote. Again, I forgot about quotes, but like you can have like certain quotes. What I'm trying to drill into you is you shouldn't have vague flashcards that ask you to describe something, because that's just like you're not really. When you do a flashcard, you want to invoke a particular neural circuitry, like a circuit in your brain. And when you're really vague with your flashcards, you just don't do that. But yeah, you should either have a definition, a quote, or an essay plan. Number 2, your essay plans or like your description should be bullet pointed and be very, very concise. I've seen flashcards, and I personally have flashcards from my English literature days of just me writing out the entire paragraph, and then I would try and memorize the entire paragraph. That could be seen as like some sort, like it could be good, right? But in the exam, like we're trying to optimize for better grades in the exam, and when it comes to the exam, like you're not going to try and remember the entire paragraph. There's very limited use cases where you can like blurt out the entire paragraph. Instead, you want to basically have an essay plan of just bullet points of like what you would say in this particular essay, and it should be concise. Again, I want to drill into you that we're only spending 15% of our revision time on memorization, and therefore this should be really efficient. We're spending most of our time on practice questions and practice papers or like practice essays or whatever. We don't want to spend a lot of time on Anki or like these flashcards, and that's something that's a mistake I made basically. And I don't want you to make the same mistake. One more thing is that like when you're writing essay plans and stuff, use keywords so you can interleave between topics. I know that like humanities subjects aren't as rigid as STEM subjects, so you need to like be really good at interleaving key concepts between topics. So what I would personally do is like have keywords so you can relate to other topics and other concepts basically. So have keywords that you use in your essay plan that you can relate to other concepts. One last thing, I think this is number 3 or number 4, I can't remember. But definitions or like quotes should follow exactly the same structure as STEM subjects. And as long as you fulfill all of these points in both humanities subjects and STEM subjects, you should be making optimal flashcards. When you apply these steps that I've told you in this video, you should be creating optimal flashcards, and hopefully now you understand how to create good flashcards for a particular subject, and how not, like what you should stay away from, and what is basically wasting your time when it comes to flashcard making. I hope you now have the knowledge to go and make good flashcards for whatever subject you have, and that will hopefully help you achieve your goal of getting better grades. I'll see you in the next one, and go watch my first video if you haven't. Bye bye. Subscribe, like this video, share this video to someone who makes trash flashcards. I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.